Sector trends. Now, coffee production at this year could see a decline of up to 20,000 metric tons owing to the impact of COVID-19. According to the Kenya Coffee Producers Association, COVID-19 restrictions that were imposed early this year, coupled with unfavorable weather conditions, could have contributed to a drop in coffee production across the country. Now, the association's chairman, Peter Masharia, says there is need for the government to invest in improving coffee production, even as it reforms the marketing of Kenyan coffee. Now, the association further wants government to include coffee farmers in institutions that it is creating to oversee coffee farming in the country. Now, to help navigate through this conversation today, we are joined by the chairman, Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, Henry Kenyon. Just before we cross over to you, Henry, this morning for this conversation, let's therefore look at where we are in terms of our coffee sector in the country. And I want us to look at the average value of coffee, and we can actually have it right there now. And you can see that all the way from 2015 to 2020, yes, it's been a hit or miss in some years because it's not just a constant curve all the way up to the top. Yeah, we've been having this rise and falls in terms of the average value. All right, let's go to volume now, which is going to paint also a picture of exactly where we have been. And if you look at the average volume of coffee export, it's also going to show you that we have been rising, because if you look at from 2015 to 2020, then you can actually see the biggest jump was experienced in 2019 all the way to 2020, which is also going to be our conversation this morning. So what has been the price of coffee? Let's also take a look at that. Yes, also a jump and fall. There's nothing pretty much to talk about, but we can actually see that from 2019 to where up to where right now, the quarter 2 and quarter 3, we've been having that quite a big of a jump. So let's talk about the performance of export coffee. All right, let's look at it as well. Yes, there has been a V shape somewhere, and there's that drop as well in terms of exactly how we've been performing. But it's also a mixed feeling of exactly what is going on, because there's no general trend when you look at that data in terms of the way that we have been performing. All right, Henry, for the very first time then, good morning. All right, welcome to Metropole Television. So let's begin with the way forward for the new KPCU. What is your mandate?
Lovely. Our mandates are twofold. One, support farmers in milling and marketing their coffee. And then secondly, also administer the Coffee Cherry Advance Fund. This is a fund sent by the government to support farmers, particularly when they begin harvesting, to access some money that they can start using before their coffee is sold. Because as you understand, is when I've seen from when coffee is harvested to when it is sold, it takes months, can take 3 to 5 months. So the government set up a fund that farmers can borrow money to keep them, to sustain them until their coffee is full. So that's like the dual mandate for new KPCU.
Yes, but what we're talking about this fund now, what used to be done before the fund, and what was it not working?
Good question. I think before there was, I think it's something you started with, which is very clear that the coffee sector in Kenya has not been doing well. So we remember in 2016, the president set up a coffee task force that went around the country, establishing what exactly are the key pain points and what are the issues that needed to be sorted out. The task force came up with a report and was presented to an implementation committee. And one of the many other, and address all the issues actually you've raised there. And one of the things they said, there was need to set up a coffee cherry fund, an advance fund to support farmers. And so this, the fund is part of the various reforms that the government is taking as a result of from the task force report.
Pretty much. Now, let's just talk about what is happening. Therefore, from where you sit this morning, what is the state of the coffee sector amid the COVID-19 pandemic? And also, as a whole, what has it done locally?
I think maybe if you look at coffee sector, as I said, coffee sector, we've had challenges, but a lot of challenges in terms of the last 10, 15 years, I think in the region we have been doing badly. If you look at Uganda, they have in that period moved from 1 million bags to about 5 million bags. Ethiopia have moved from 4,000 about 8,000. Kenya has moved from about 14 million bags to about 700,000. So we've really come down. So we've had a lot of challenges, but also there's a lot of there is hope also in terms of what we used to be non-traditional COVID areas like Nandi, Kericho, Kisii, Bugoma. They are also increasing the production of coffee. So as much, although we have seen a lot of reduction in Central, in Kiambu, in Nyeri, in the rest, where a lot of land is going to real estate, we also have now land opening up in the western region, in the rift of the coffee. So when you look at it, it's like it's not lost for the Kenyan market. However, also at the same time, there have been a lot of conversations from the task force report, from now, as you said, the farmers organization, the traders organization. There's a lot of all this conversation. How do we change the trade? How do we change the narrative and ensure that farmers earn more? So I can say we are not at good position, but we are moving towards a better position.
Yes, is that you saying that the sentiment when it comes to coffee production and coffee farming in the country is changing? Because Henry, you and I do know that this used to be a gold mine up to a certain point. How much have we corrected that sentiment?
I think yes, production has really, I think as I said, production has reached. There are areas that will never. There are some of the areas that like will never be coffee farms. I mean, we know 10 years ago, Runda, the whole of Runda was coffee actually. Kitsuru and all that. I mean, there are areas will never be coffee farms again. I think Kiambu. I think the statistics I had, I think last year showed that Kiambu alone had lost about 12,000 hectares of coffee into real estate and others. So they are definitely areas that you'll never get back to coffee. However, what that will mean is that we have other areas moving up, and as I said, in the North Rift. But also, I think one thing also is very important to note is that coffee is highly commoditized product, which means however much you do, you don't have too much control, a lot of control at the world market. What you have control of is at the product, what you produce, and the quality. So I think in what we are seeing over the years is now people investing more in the quality and also investing in reducing the cost of production, and that is what now can now ensure that farmers at any one time, they're in a position they can compete globally. So yes, coffee is still a goal to few those who are producing it, but it becomes continued being a challenge to thousands of smallholder farmers that are still not able to, don't have sufficient volumes, and also to get them into market, and also whenever they're in market, the returns are not good.
Pretty much. Now, Henry, I want you to help us this morning make sense of the data that we have with us here in the studio. And I want us to jump to the exports of coffee. Now, let's look at the performance of our export coffee. And I really want, Richie, if you can, give me that data so we can actually look at it this morning and make sense of it. Good. And I want to look at it that from January 2019 all the way to where right now in May up to May 20th, we've seen that jump in how much we are attracting globally. What would you attribute that to? Because yes, the prices have jumped of late. How can we make sense of that?
I think it's good to appreciate, but is how coffee market is, or how the coffee. Kenya coffee has 2 seasons. So the main season harvesting starts from the end of this month, from October, November up to that is October up to February. And then that's when the coffee gets into and that coffee is in the market from February to up to July. So that is every time after July you see a lot of the coffee good. That is now the main season where we have most of the areas. Then you have the small season that is more in the eastern area, that a bit in Machakos, a bit in Meru, that begins in July, in May up to July. So you see a bit of that, and then at the moment is when it's picking up. So that is at any one time you'll see the jump in between like January to March of the coffee in the market. And then second is also to appreciate that we still don't drink a lot of our coffee. Unlike Ethiopia that drinks 50% of their coffee, Kenya we are less than 5%. So which means all the volumes you produce is all for the markets. So when we have volumes ready have been produced, definitely you see the export going up, because that's the destination for our coffee.
Pretty much, Henry. Again, I want us to look at the volume as well, because that's also going to paint a picture, therefore. Now, if you can actually look at that data in terms of the volume of coffee that we have been exporting, there is one thing that stands out, that as from 2019 all the way to 2020, we've had that quite a big jump in terms of the volumes that we are exporting of coffee. Also, can you make sense of that this morning?
That's interesting. Coffee, it's, if you look at it, if you know, like the 2017, 2018, we've had a very good year. Largely, we did. That is from a rainfall perspective. If you look at it from a rainfall perspective, we didn't have a lot of drought, so most of the coffee came, and the rains came at the right time. So I think the last year, the 2018, 2020, 2019, 2020, that the crop you're talking about was a very, very good crop. This year we are likely to this year is actually likely to go down, and for many reasons. We had rains in January. We had rains when coffee was supposed to be flowering. We had rains in the wrong times, for lack of a better word. So as you say, our coffee, like any other commodity in Kenya, is rain fed, and therefore the behavior of the yield is largely dependent on how the weather performs. So when we have poor weather, you see the volumes go down. So 18, 19, 20 coffee, we had a very good weather. We had rains at the right time. This year, even with or without COVID, when the rainfalls came, the volumes are not likely to be that high. So that's normally how the situation goes. And then now, how does that and then plays out in the rest of the world? So these are the situations now that at any one time, depending on the weather, is what coffee do we have to put to the market.
Pretty much. All right, Hombre, just before we move on to the next question this morning, there's another thing that you've mentioned, is that, well, if we're talking about the coffee prices in the country, we shouldn't actually just be concentrating on the coffee exports. One thing that I want to ask you, do we have a local market for our coffee as we speak this morning?
Our coffee, as I said, our local market for coffee is very small. It's about less than 5% of the volume is produced, but there is potential to grow it. And I think one of the mandates of new KPC will do as others is also to focus on developing the local market. And I think there are different other stakeholders who work towards that. Actually, today, if you walk in any supermarket, you'll see there's actually now a section of Kenyan coffee that was not there 5 years ago. So I always like whenever you see coffee from different people, from Dormans, which is Kenya, from Sasini, there are different brands that you see from them. And I think soon we are going to see that increasing, and more farmers consuming most of our coffee. And also, I think looking at that was actually part of the reforms. Also looking at how do we encourage more roasting, even at the SME level. How do we ensure that we at the cottage level, we have farmers who are growing their own coffee, but also they can roast, they can even consume it at that level. So looking at it, ensuring from even a licensing perspective that one is made more applicable and more possible. So yes, the domestic market today is very, very low, less than 5% of the volume produced, but it is growing. There's a lot of effort from various stakeholders looking towards that, because the moment when the situation we are in is like when we are so exposed to the world market that anything changing, and we produce less than 0.2% of the world. There are times we used to control the world market. Now the world market can actually move on without Kenya. It's like we will not be missed in the world market, unfortunately. So we have to really look at it in like, we ensure we are still there, but also we can also grow the local consumption.
Pretty much. All right, let's look at what the Ministry of Agriculture had earlier asked Mombasa Tea Auction and the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, that the NSA, to move to digital trading. Now, can you confirm to us, has this shift happened in both auctions, and what has the effect been so far since moving online, if we have, Henry?
I think we have been now to those. There are different forms and forms and shapes of online trading. I think like now the Nairobi Coffee Exchange that has been meeting at the Wakulima House, New KPCU building, where actually our organization is second floor of our organization. I think they have not, since COVID, they have not met physically, but they have been trading. So right now, most of it has been going, digital, and I think the same happens. So there is that happening, and have we seen much of a change? I think we are yet to look at this. The prices of have been, but I think like of coffee, we started now. I think started like this season 2-3 weeks ago, have been good. But I think that has many other factors. It's not just that the digital, the volumes are also low. So maybe we will be able to judge it when we get to the main season. That from like now December, January, when we get most of the coffee in the market. So we can say we have also moved digital. We are moving there eventually, but to the impact of it to be seen later. However, what I think the importance of a digital platform is largely one, in all the areas, the issue of transparency. A commodity like coffee or even tea, there's a lot of talk of manipulation of the trading, the trading floor. Does that happen? You can't say it has, it doesn't. But then when you have a very credible digital platform that everybody can, confirm, can even be able to verify what is happening, it increases the confidence in that market, and then increase the confidence in a trading platform, helps even attracting more players in the market, and the more players in the market increase, it actually increases the avenue, because the importance of an auction, it provides an opportunity or a platform for a price discovery, ensure that the whatever commodity is placed in the market is able to find the seekers of that product, and as they seek that product, they're able now to jointly believe or agree what to pay for, and then be able to attract better prices based on quality.
Pretty much. Hombre, I'm going to ask you this because you've actually responded to it. Because the next question is that where Kenya stands in the international coffee market in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. But because you've responded to that, I want to put this question to you in a different way. What are our chances back to what we used to see before there was this turnaround in the coffee sector? Is it through special coffee, value addition? And if so, where are we with that?
I think good question. I think where it's easy as Kenyans farmers are resilient, Kenyans traders are resilient. The interesting what makes the real Kenyan is the resilience and and the focus to what we do. And I can guarantee you the coffee farmers who are resilient, they'll rebound, and they will, and they are already working towards that, and so they trade. And however, as you said earlier, there need to be more effort, and that's even more players to look at. How do we now go backward to support production, support, ensure the farmers are producing. And that's why even I say this fund, like the Coffee Cherry Advance Fund, also ensuring that the farmers are not, able to access a little bit of money earlier before the market, the product goes to the market, so that it can help them as they carry on with their lives. When it comes to the value addition, increasing the local production, that is part of the efforts, and various players are working on that to ensure that we are able to get to the market. So I don't see all gloom and doom ahead. I think there's a lot of hope in the industry, because most of the players are focused to ensure that this industry stays afloat. But most importantly, the returns to the farmer, to everybody now, stays in the sustainable level.
Yes. Henri, I want you to be a bit more specific to anybody listening to you this morning, because one of your biggest mandates now is marketing. So can you talk to me about what are you trying to change specifically in terms of the way we've been marketing our coffee to even other newer markets internationally, that is going to say, well, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel with the new KPCU?
Lovely. That is a very, very good question. I think for you to look at the market for coffee is to appreciate that coffee is, number one, marketed or bought on the quality. So if you have a good quality, and then work back on it, so that the quality of coffee is determined at the production. If during production things didn't go well, the volume, the quality can go down. Even at the pulping level, what you call the factory level, again, if that is not done properly, quality can be lost. What you know is that what is brought to the mill is what we call a parchment. So when parchment is delivered to us now as the millers, idea is to receive it and also ensure that during the processing, you are able to demonstrate to the farmers and deliver to them the highest level of transparency, because what the farmers bring to the market is not what goes to them. So it's like the farmers deliver to their factory cherry, the red cherry. Then the cherry is what is power dried and then taken to the market, and then it turns into parchment. Parchment, then it is brought to the mill. The mill mill the parchment, cleans it, and then get the clean beans, which is now what is in the market. So the conversion from cherry to parchment to green beans, if it is not managed properly, that is an area that can also bring a lot of issues. And the farmers, some feel, no, we are not being treated properly. We are not. So I think for us as New KSPC is just to make sure that whatever coffee is brought to us, we are able to demonstrate to the farmers highest level of transparency, and also demonstrating to the farmers that whatever it is that the grades, because again, when the coffee now is brought to the mill, it is graded in various levels. Coffee is graded like twice now based on the weight, that's the size of the bean. So you have the A, B, about size based on the size of the bean, and then there's the second level, which is now the part of the quality, the tasting that is now been tasted by trained Ricara to say this is good quality, this will be specialty coffee, this is 85, or this is class this, and that at that level, if it is done really transparently, also helps farmers to appreciate, and also the market to appreciate that the kind of coffee. When that one is done, then you need to look at what are our traditional markets. Kenya, we have a traditional coffee. Traditional markets have been the, Germany, USA, Italy. There have been these growing. So these are still buying, and therefore to look at it, how do we get to different buyers, different people in those areas, but also identify other upcoming markets, the Middle East, the Asian market. Korea is actually one of the increasing, and these are the markets. And the idea is to focus all that. And the interesting, a different market prefer a different commodity. So ensuring that we have the commodity toward this market, but also as we are looking forward to not just telling the farmer, the buyers, our coffee. We also make sure to tell the buyers our story. The coffee, Kenyan coffee, is not just about the quality, the great quality. It is indeed among the best coffee in the world from a quality perspective. But you also want to let the world know this coffee is also about the grower, the farmer. Kenyan farmer really tends their crops with their bare hands. They pray in the morning before they go harvest their coffee. They carry it on their backs, up the hills, down the ridges, up the hills, to the factory. They sit down hours trying to ensure that only the best quality gets to the market. So truly, that kind of care, that kind of understanding, if that is now, we make sure that we package it with the commodity, not just, and the story of the farmers. That's how we are one of the areas that we are, even the markets we are speaking with, and they're getting more excited how they can and we can guarantee and link them back to where that coffee was grown. So yes, looking at with the technology in terms of the transparency and also the traceability, we are telling the market, here is the Kenyan, not just the Kenyan coffee, there is the whole package, the Kenyan story about the coffee.
Pretty much. I'm trying to think of exactly what I'll ask you next, because I understand that we can't get you throughout this morning. But let me just pick a couple of that now. Can you confirm to me, Henry, the concerns of the loss of specialty markets due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic? And how does Kenya compare with its peers in the international market on these specialty markets that we're talking about this morning?
I think in specialty market, Kenya, we still have a very, very good position in terms of once we are able to produce that. But there are two ways I think of this. There are, in Kenya, there's what we say, the second, there are different, you can bring your coffee through the auction, where it is now, and then different traders, exporters buy your coffee, trader, and then they can export to different places in different forms. The people have that way of doing. We can also identify a roaster directory and then link them. So you do that for the second we export directly. What you find is that most of our buyers in the US, in Germany, and all, most are interested or goes for that specialty coffee. And once you're able to get a specialty coffee, you're able now, you're able now to negotiate a good price. And Kenya, I think at that price, we are still doing well only if we're able to maintain that quality, but also the volumes, because the challenge you also find is that if the volumes go so low, it becomes unattractive to large buyers who will be interested to keep procuring our coffee. In that position, we are unable to negotiate good price. But we must continue working hard, specifically building both the quality and the quantities. The quantities are going down significantly. We have to really keep building on that to remain relevant in the global market.
Pretty much. All right. Now, there's something that you mentioned. If we're actually talking about a turnaround, therefore, of the sector from where we used to be to where we need to go, is it possible, Andre, for us to start saying that if we're going to be serious about coffee, therefore, and our chances in the international market and the local market, then we have to have the shift from a heavy reliance on this unpredictable weather patterns to us being able to graduate to a level where we're saying our coffee farming in the country is quite advanced. We don't have to rely on weather patterns. Is there that chance? And how long can it take for us to get there?
Now, quite interesting. I think that's a quite interesting. Is like, can coffee? Do we have enough water? Do we have to irrigate our coffee? And I think quite a number of people actually do irrigate their coffee. But also, there's a lot of other what we call climate smart technologies that are emerging that are very helpful to keep our coffee in production even during the dry season. Simple technology that just simple things. They're not even the practices are not even simple practices like using mulching your coffee, ensuring that people are putting manure so that now you're able to increase the water holding capacity, ensuring that the soils are tested oftenly so that when you're putting the fertilizer, you're not just throwing in fertilizer, you're putting the right fertilizer at the right time, in the right quantity, in the right manner. And also, I think additionally also looking at how do we even prune? Are we pruning our coffee properly in a manner that it's not so exposed to sun, but also at the same time it is not so bushy to attract more diseases. So there's a lot more that is happening and need to happen to get back in terms of even without is yes, if we can get irrigation, it's great. But I know quite a number of farmers are trying to get into irrigation, whether it is drip or different types of irrigation that at different levels. But at global, I think at a larger scale, majority of farmers are adopting the so-called the climate smart technologies, using mulching and also trying to conserving waters in their farms, using the cover crops, are quite a number of practices that ensure that their crops remain well moistured even when it is dry. So the natural soil moisture is protected, but also the soil they also protect from the sun scorch when it gets too hot. So yes, there's quite a bit of technology and change in practices that need to happen. It is happening, they need to happen more, but for that to happen, there need to be a lot of concerted effort from the county governments to private to support farmers in irrigation, because what I'm talking about these are trainable skills. Is either you know it or you don't, and therefore I have to ensure that we have this information out there, and the farmers are able to take it up and also apply it. And that's why I think even the role I'm grateful to Metro TV and many other media who are now looking at agriculture from just reporting the problems and trying to see how can we now tell the stories and look at what are the issues that can be done. So I think yes, I see a lot of hope in that, but in terms of using the technology in changing the situation, that whatever the weather brings to us, we can be able to manage.
Pretty much. Henry, unfortunately, we have to end here, man, because I know you have some other duties that you have to look at this morning. But thank you very much for your 30 minutes this morning. You have been quite an invaluable guest on Metropole's Business AM.
Thank you very much. Looking forward. I really appreciate you having me this morning.
I appreciate it as well. Now, that's exactly how we come to the end of the show. We were joined by Henry Kenyon, is the chairman of New Kenya Planters Cooperative Union. If you don't know what it is, and he says they have quite two big mandates, you know what they are. So it's for us to look and see exactly what is going to become of the coffee sector, something that was a gold mine back in the days. So is it going to be a turnaround with some of this bigger movements that we've seen from the government? 20146 as your SMS line at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. Those questions, we're going to send it to him directly. Good morning.